There is plenty of bad advice shared by well-intentioned people out there on how to keep the peace at work. But here's the problem. It's keeping you miserable and it's making you question your career choices. Well, in this video, I want to give you some tools to help change all of that. Hey guys, my name is Tammy for those who don't know me, and I am your guide to dealing with difficult conversations with confidence so you can keep your relationships intact. 3 ways to stand up for yourself without starting a fight is going to give you the tools to say no, to stop being a people pleaser, and to command the respect that you deserve in the workplace. As a nurse educator, and a communication coach, I see a lot of conflict, and in fact, conflict's always around, just kind of waiting for us to step into it. And sometimes it just comes out of nowhere. In relationships, you wouldn't expect it to come out of. A student once came to me to complain about her buddy nurse and how she wanted a different assignment because this nurse was unapproachable, she had resting bitch face, she seemed to be judgmental. And of course, I'm not going to just let that happen without doing the work to get out of that relationship. And so I taught her how to go and have these conversations. And when she came back to me, she not only was comfortable working with this person, she felt she had a new friend. It's just truly remarkable what people can accomplish when they do the work. Now, the first thing you need to know is even the most confident person has moments where they feel uncomfortable. It happens to me as well. There are times when I worry about looking like the jerk or being judged as a bully and making sure that my intention is aligned with my impact. So first, let's just talk about some of the bad advice that's out there. There is a lot of it, and I know it's coming from a place of a really well-intentioned heart, but I'm kind of tired of how it's keeping people stuck in their circumstances and letting them stay in victim mode, because it's really advice that is, well, quite bad. All right, so share with me in the comments below if you've heard about this bad advice. Obviously, share the bad advice you have heard and share with me how that's impacted your career and your workplace relationships. So, have you ever heard of this one? Just ignore them. Keep your head down, do the work, don't rock the boat, don't make waves. Just come in, go home, forget about it. Don't bother speaking up. Kill them with kindness and walk away. Now, here is the problem with that well-intentioned advice. And I will say, there are some times when those would be the best choices, but when that is the only device you have and every conflict you come up with, that is your go-to response, I'm betting you probably are feeling like you need to change it up. So the problem with this well-intentioned advice is it's coming from a place of fear, a place of lack. If they don't know how to deal with the situation themselves, so they can't advise you on how to actually solve the problem you're in right now. There are good reasons for fear, though. I don't want to take away from that. There's a fear of retaliation. There's a fear of losing a job, a career. There is a fear of losing a friendship, maybe, if this is a colleague that you really are close with. And then there's the fear that we don't know how it's done because we've never seen anybody else do this. And then the real problem of all of this is that it leads to us losing the ability to actually stand up for ourselves when we need to do it. As our confidence continues to drop and plummet and go down, so too does our ability to speak up. And so when our confidence drops, we end up spending years in therapy as a result of this. So what I see happening is that there's this carryover effect into our other relationships where we end up adopting the same behaviors because they're survival mechanisms. Or we swing far to the other side and we become very controlling. So we are going to give you tools to end that cycle today. Now, I need to give a warning first. This is not an either or. There is a continuum of responses that you can use, but we tend to think of this as either I shut up or I speak up. But there's actually a lot of different ways in between being quiet and being aggressive that we can use. So I'm going to show you some tools today that put us more in the middle ground of that. Now, before I do, let me tell you a little story. A couple weeks ago, I was coming back from the airport. My husband picked me up, and on the way home, he was retelling me his experience over the weekend with one of our neighbors. Turns out, as he came home Saturday morning, there was this bright orange sticker on the side of my window of my car, which was parked on the street across from our driveway. Our neighbors had called the cops because they felt our vehicle had been there for more than 4 days, which it hadn't been. It had only been 2 days, but the part of the story that's important is that the neighbors called the cops to have our car towed. Not very neighborly, and definitely not lowest level conversation. Now, my husband was upset and angry and frustrated, and when I asked him if he went to talk to the neighbors, he said, no, I'm just going to leave it. It's already dealt with. So he's on that far end of, I'm not going to say anything, walk away, and that can be the right choice, right? I'm really upset because I feel so disrespected that the neighbor didn't have enough to come over and say to us, hey, could we park in the driveway, or could you move your car? We need some space. Like, what's going on, right? But that the first response for him was to call the cops. That really took it to a whole new level. And so I was really upset and disappointed with our neighbor for doing that. I also knew that he'd probably been worried about this for a long time. So I needed to calm down first, because what I wanted to do was go over there and bang on his door and say, what the hell? So instead of doing that, the next morning I was still angry and I parked my car back on the street in defiance. So this is that either or, right? My husband was, let's just leave it alone. And I'm like, heck no, I'm going to be aggressive and I'm going to claim my spot and I'm going to go right back there and he can just deal with it. So which one of those do you think is going to actually get us to resolution faster? None. None of them will, right? Because on one hand, we're not addressing it. On the other hand, I'm being too aggressive. So I knew I needed to calm down still. This obviously had hurt me really deeply, so it took me a little longer than usual. But as soon as I calmed down, I put my car back in the driveway and I waited for my opportunity to go and talk to them. Now, the keys here that I want to share with you are to be straightforward and call out the behavior. And so that means I needed to have a conversation with my neighbor. So I'm going to use this example as we go through to share with you how we resolve the conflict and are moving forward. Now, the key of being straightforward is to get to the point. And there's a few reasons for that. First, it will not give you time to back out. If you just rip off the Band-Aid and tell the person what you need to talk about, then they can come into the conversation authentically and prepared to talk about the issue at hand. If I'd have gone over and talked to my neighbor about, hey, how's the weather? How's the new baby? How's work? It would have been distracting from the real reason I was there. And then by the time I got to the topic that I wanted to talk about, all of the other relationship building stuff may have felt a bit insincere. So be straight to the point. Don't beat around the bush. So method number 1 is share an observation plus a desired outcome in a way that opens up a safe conversation. It is possible to still respect somebody and hold them accountable. It's possible to like somebody and disagree with what they're doing. And so these difficult conversations can feel really intimidating, but when you have a safe structure, they're easier to take on. Now, let's say you're in the workplace and you're in a meeting and you're sharing your ideas about whatever problem you're trying to solve, and you notice your colleague go, oh my God. Big sigh, rolls the eyes, shaking the head, muttering underneath their breath. Your instinct tells you that's about you and you'd like to address that behavior. So this one comes directly from the 10 Safe Conversational Starters. It's a download that I offer to you for free. And here is exactly what you can say to that. I can sense from the look on your face or that big sigh that there may be something you want to say to me. It's okay to talk with me directly. And in that way, you're calling out the behavior that you find offensive. You don't have to list all of them, but you can make note of one of them. Rolling of the eyes, the big sigh, the muttering under the breath. It needs to be a fact though. It can't be an opinion. So you couldn't say, oh, I noticed you're judging me. Let's talk about it. Because judging is what you think they're doing. So it does have to be a fact. So go ahead and use that statement to help open up a safe conversation for exploration. Now, when I went to my neighbor's, I actually didn't have to use that because when I knocked on the door and he opened it up, he kind of had a smile on his face like he knew why I was there. So I just said to him, I go, hey, it's Tammy from across the way. I have a feeling you know why I'm here. And he said yes. So we were able to start the conversation. That's when I then said, I just need to understand why. It was still my desired outcome. Why did you call the cops and not come to us? And then we could explore it. Tip number 2 is to redirect. And now redirecting is really, you've got a couple options here. The first one is if someone asks you or says something offensive, you can simply ignore it and turn your attention somewhere else. Maybe there's another party in the group or you just go back to work. And you're really communicating in a nonverbal way that that's not acceptable and you're just going to not even address it. You won't give them life. So this redirect is really to prevent them from having any control. Another way you could do this is redirect by saying, I'm not going to answer that question. That one's kind of inappropriate. Do you think that was reasonable to say? And then shift the direction of the conversation to where you want it to go. Let's get back on track about this problem. Or let's make our time more useful and let's work on this problem together. instead of name calling or whatever is happening. So a redirect is to control the narrative. Now, the next level redirect does require a little bit of, finesse, or maybe social attunement to the person you're in conflict with. You can make some jokes and laugh a little bit at yourself, at the situation, share it back, and kind of lighten the mood, but you have to be careful with who you do that with. It's not always received in the right intention in which you send it. Now, the third tip is to set a boundary. We're not really good at setting boundaries, or maybe I should say we're not good at communicating boundaries. And so when a boundary has been fractured or trespassed, we need to close it and communicate about that. Now, the first step is to simply just state where your boundary is, what you're willing to accept, and what conditions you're willing to engage with. So for example, in healthcare, we have people that are in very vulnerable positions. They're frustrated with their lack of ability to do things for themselves. They're angry that they're in the hospital. They've got all these extra worries that we don't see. And so sometimes as a nurse, I get the brunt of it. And a patient might yell at me and cuss me out and tell me I'm not doing a good job. My coworkers can also do that. So this method is going to work great for both. If that happens to be the situation you walk into, you can simply state, I don't appreciate the tone of voice or in the way which you're talking to me, so we can either restructure this or I'm going to walk away and we'll come back when you're ready to talk nice. It's true. Now, if they don't respect that boundary, you may have to elevate it to the next level. So we first want to just start with describing our boundary and expressing it. And then the second thing is if they don't respect it, then we're going to go next level and say what our consequence will be. So it might sound something like this. I'm going to need to bring my manager in on this and I'm going to file some paperwork if we can't agree to moving forward together. So you're being very clear on your boundary and your consequences. And then what do you have to do next? Follow through. If you don't follow through, your words will never mean anything. So just to quickly recap, the first one was to share an observation and your desired outcome. The second one, redirect. Take control of the narrative and where that conversation is going. And the third one is to set your boundary and potentially bring in a consequence. So you might be wondering, Tammy, how did it go with the neighbor? Because neighbor stuff can be really tense, right? Well, I will tell you that it went really well. Part of my strategy is always to be curious first and to understand the other person's perspective before I share mine. And that's what I did when I asked him, could you help me understand why? He felt safe enough to share his thoughts, his beliefs, what he thought was happening. And then I invited him to understand why we might be on the street and not in our driveway, to which a greater understanding was achieved by both and a solution came out of it in that we gave him our phone number so he could call us anytime to inquire how long we might need that spot on the street for, or if he could use our driveway. All right, guys, show me a little bit of love here and comment below and let me know how this has helped you, what you've learned from this, and how you're going to use it going forward so that you can stand up without causing a fight. Share this with 5 of your friends. Why 5? Because I know every single person is always at risk of conflict not being resolved. And so these are the tips you want to share with those that you like so that they can also be prepared. And then, of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. These are all great things that help YouTube know that this information needs to get out. And remember, you're only one conversation away.